really amazing, Dr. Haney, is that we were reading when Dr. Johnson said that he wanted to desegregate the public school system. A lot of people thought he had lost his mind because they said, well, you can't do this, it's too vast. But he set about systematically changing social policy, gathering people together, networking, and eventually, as you know, it happened.
Very good. You know, let's look at the recent conference that you had here by Dr. Winbush, and I think that we can really call this an assessment, because what we'd like for you to do is to give us sort of a blow-by-blow account in terms of the individuals who were there and some of the things that happened at that that institute, even though many of us were not there in person. We do hope that after this we can at least sort of feel that we've had the essence of what went on at the institute. Let's do it from that perspective.
And actually, through the miracles of technology, I'll give towards the end of the show how you can still see some of the actual tapes that are available on the internet. We invited several people, approximately 35, 40 speakers, panelists to come to the conference, the most notable of which was Dr. John Hope Franklin, who heads up President Clinton's task force on race, and also a Fisk graduate. He keynoted our conference. We had people, Desmond Tutu's daughter came in from South Africa. Richard Wright's daughter, Julia, came in from Paris, France. Gamal Nkrumah, the son of Kwame Nkrumah, came in from Egypt. W.B. Du Bois' son came in as well. But we also had people like actor James Earl Jones. We had Chuck D, the rapper. Dick Gregory was there. Jill Nelson, who's the author of Straight No Chaser. And we divided the panels up in a variety of subjects: business, economic issues, political issues, entertainment, media, a variety of health, and talked about the context that those systems operate in under race. And it was very provocative. There were controversial moments, as any discussions of race might be. But I think overall, what is the repercussions of it, or some of the repercussions of it, is that those people are networking and doing some action strategies right now, in fact.
And I think you mentioned the fact that Dr. John Hope Franklin was there.
Yes,
what about Dr. Franklin? I think that Dr. Franklin almost is an institute literally
In and of
in
itself.
himself.
Let's
talk about him, about his attitude about what was
Well,
going
you know,
on.
I had the fortunate privilege of being one of his students way back in thousands of years ago in the 1970s when I was doing my PhD at Chicago. And Dr. Franklin has always been very approachable. As I said earlier, he's a Fisk graduate. I think that President Clinton made an incredibly good choice by choosing him to head the president's task force on race in this country. What Dr. Franklin brings to the table is that he has a history of race in America, stemming all the way back, all the way back to 1617 when the first African Americans were brought to this country. And he's able to provide a perspective that, as an historian, that so many people cannot have. Dr. Franklin once said, and he quoted James Baldwin, that the greatest problem of race in America is Americans not understanding their history. And so we were, honored and privileged to have him as the keynote speaker, and he set a pace for the idea of looking at the context of race relations in history.
You know, I think that in a real sense that Franklin is sort of a continuation of Du Bois. I think the quote that you mentioned earlier, and I think you might want to reflect and might want to say something in reference to this. What was Du Bois' quote about the greatest problem of the 20th century? You see, Du
Bois' great quote in The Souls of Black Folk in 1903, he said, the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. I think as we are 2 years away from the 21st century, I think it still remains a problem. And Du Bois echoed that, Charles Johnson echoed that, and John Hope Franklin echoes that. Dr. Franklin said that it's amazing how people will approach me, have obviously approached John Hope Franklin and said, we want you to solve the race problem very quickly. Well, it took 400 years to get this thing together with this system of racism. It's not going to be solved in a matter of 2 or 3 years or 20 years of affirmative action or anything else like this. It's a very complicated problem.
Doctor, you know, we're coming to our first commercial break, after which we're going to come back and talk about some other aspects of race relations. As a matter of fact, we want to sort of go into a little deeper, dealing with some of the issues and some of the controversies at the Race Relations Institute this past July. And of course, we'll do that after we have our first commercial break, and we're just about approaching it. One reason we didn't want to raise any other questions is because we didn't want to raise questions and then interrupt you with this break. But we will take about a minute break, and we'll be back. And we'll be back with you following this short commercial break.